The Calgary real estate market is imploding, while the Edmonton real estate market is starting to show some signs of slowing down. And then you've got Regina, Saskatoon, and Winnipeg setting sales records. Let's take a look at what's going on in the Canadian real estate market, focusing on the Prairie provinces. Hey there, and welcome back to Ball Prairie Real Estate. My name is Matthew Pfeifer, real estate agent in Regina, Saskatchewan. That is my trusted assistant, 𝗳𝗲𝗿𝗁. This is my monthly Canadian real estate market update. We're going to focus just on the prairies in this video. I've got a separate video for BC. I'll have one for Ontario, and then Quebec and the Atlantic provinces we'll put together. I want to be able to dive deeper into these cities, give you more information, and that's why I've broken them up. But of course, let's start this off with another one of my terrible bad dad jokes. Why did the Scarecrow win an award? Because he was outstanding in his field. If you have a terrible joke I can use in a future episode, put in the comments below. Let's start off talking about the Regina real estate market here. And if you're wondering what I'm wearing here, it is a Moroccan World Cup soccer jersey I got from a client of mine. And I want to say thank you again for that. Quick overview of what's going on in the market. And then I want to dive into some stats here. So we're still seeing a very busy Regina real estate market. Now, I'm recording this in late September and the stats will be out very soon. We're at the time of the year where the market does slow down. It's a seasonality thing for sure. We're not seeing, 15 offers on houses as common anymore. It's more like 3, 5, 8 offers on houses, but still pretty much all of these houses that are good are selling way over asking price. Those ones that are sitting around, that's ones that are selling under asking price. You can't just put an offer date up on a house that's overpriced and expect to get a whole bunch of offers over asking price. It's just not happening right now. Let's take a look at some of the stats here. So you can see 360 homes sold. It is down year over year, but that is just because we had an absolute rocket August last year. Best August we ever had by a mile, actually. If you kind of scroll through and go through 2019, 2018, etc., you can see just how much busier we are right now with sales. And again, remember that in 2018, 2019, all those years, even in 21, 22, we had double the inventory that we do right now. So it's crazy to see how many houses are selling with the lack of inventory we've got. And you probably think with all those strong sales, everybody's going, well, heck, I got to put my house up for sale so I can get a bunch of money for it. And the problem is they're really not doing that. If you're somebody who wants to sell your house because you want to move up into maybe a bigger house, well, the problem you've got is there's not much to buy. And so you're seeing people not put their houses up for sale because they're saying, well, I can't find anything. I'm gonna have to compete and pay $50,000 or $100,000 over the asking price. And you can see it reflecting the stats here. So about 450 homes were listed for sale, down well below last year, well below the 5-year average. You can see again, continuing on through previous years that we would typically have somewhere in the neighborhood of about 450 to 500 houses be listed for sale in the month, and we just didn't get that this year, or the lower end of that, and that's continued attributing to the lack of homes that are available for buyers to be able to buy. Active inventory is still really, really low. It is closing the gap a little bit on the active listings we've got typically at this time of year from previous years. It's still basically half. Now we're down to 40% down where it was like 55, 60% earlier in the year. When we had fewer sales, way more inventory. So everything is turning over really fast here. If you're watching this video because you're thinking about buying a house in any of these cities and you want me to be your real estate agent or hand pick a great one for you, let's chat. If you look in the description of this video, there's a link to my calendar where you can book me in for a call. I'd love to chat with you. Let's take a look at kind of the market balance trends here. Months of inventory 1.7. That has been creeping up since the spring. It's still well deep into a seller's market. Now, if you look here at the sales to new listing ratio, that is at 78 right now, which is an extremely strong seller's market, and actually has been tightening up through kind of the course of the year. If you look at the sales to active listing ratio, that again, exceptionally strong seller's market. Over 20% is considered a seller's market. We're at 60 right now. So it just shows how tight the Regina market is. That has cooled off a little bit. You can see it was in the 90s earlier in the year. You are going to see things loosen up a little bit as you get deeper into the fall and then into the winter market. So this is kind of what we expect, but still an exceptionally strong seller's market right now in Regina. And then here, taking a look at prices, you can see that we've been around $340,000 here for a couple of months. Typically in Regina, home prices will peak out in around that June, July, August time from the year. You always see in the spring a little bit of an uptick in prices, and then it'll fall off in the back parts of the year. So don't be surprised if we continue to see that benchmark price soften a little bit through the rest of the year, but don't mistake that for the fact that houses are all of a sudden selling way under asking price. Just got a house right now where we've got, 5 offers already on it, and we still have a few more hours to go before reviewing them. So we're still seeing lots of competition and a lot of houses that are good, again, priced well, selling well over asking price. Take a look at the Saskatoon market here, which I've been saying for a while is quietly one of the hottest real estate markets in Canada, and that continues, although we're seeing a little bit of a slowdown. Some of that for sure is seasonality. When I'm talking with agents in Saskatoon, they're telling me that a lot of buyers have become really frustrated with the market conditions. They're tired of these offer dates, competing on everything against 4, 5, 10 other buyers, having houses sell 30, 40, 50, $100,000 over asking. Taking a dive into the sales stats here, you can see that we've got 450 sales, which is actually not only down year over year, almost identical to last year, but down 5% versus the 5 average. That's the first time Saskatoon sales have been below the 5-year average all this year. And a big part of this, of course, is just how busy previous years have been. If you look at, 2023, 530 homes sold, 2022, 440, that's a very busy year. 2021, almost 500 sales. So you can see just how busy the Saskatoon market has been over the last few years. Again, even though this is down from the 5 average, this has been a crazy busy market in Saskatoon, still well above what you kind of expect. One other thing that's interesting here in Saskatoon is looking at the sales so far year to date. About 3,600 homes have sold year to date. Look at previous years, 2016, 2017, 2018, even 2019. Those, they only had 33 on the low end to 3,700 homes sell over the entire year, not year to date. So right now, year to date in Saskatoon, they've sold more houses than they had in those years for the entire. Just shows how active the market is right now. And then looking at this active inventory number, this is the really scary number. There's barely more homes for sale in Saskatoon right now than there is in Regina. Of course, Saskatoon is a much bigger center than Regina. 644 homes for sale, well below the 5-year average, well below last year. Again, good news, it's starting to close the gap a little bit. Early in the year was down about 60%. Now we're only down, only 45%. But look at previous years, like look at 2017, look at 2018, 2019, those 2,000 homes for sale that time of year. And again, that was a slower market then. There was more active listings. It was definitely much more of a buyer's market at that time frame. But 644 homes for sale right now, there's just nothing for buyers to choose from. That's why we're seeing all these bidding wars right now. And that's also why buyers are getting so frustrated. Can't find anything, and everything that is for sale is way more expensive than they want to pay. And of course, if you're a home buyer right now and you're looking at Realtor.ca, hitting refresh, you're seeing the same thing in the stats here, and there's not a lot of new listings. 650 new listings, down well below last year, down well below the 5-year average. You can look here, 650 to about 750 homes is kind of what we'd expect. 2020 had 780, so it's quite a bit higher. And then if you go back to even previous years, again, well over 700 is kind of what you expect for new listings this time of year, and they got 650 this past month. Taking a look at the market balance here, you can see months of inventory actually jumped up to 1.4. Been in 1 month's inventory since April, just pinned at that 1 month of inventory. Just everything was turning over every single month. Looking at previous years, again, you can see still how strong of a seller's market it is right now compared to previous years. If we flip over to sales to active listing ratio, again, remember, over 20% is considered a seller's market. They're at 74 right now in Saskatoon, and they were over 100 earlier this year. And you wonder why prices are going through the roof there. There's your answer. There's just every buyer is bidding up everything because there's just nothing to buy, and they're fighting over absolutely everything. And then looking at prices here, you can see, we're at that about $435,000 mark right now. Probably for the year, this is where prices are going to peak. That's what we would expect. Even in years where prices have gone up or down, you always see an increase through the spring, June, July, August-ish time frame. That's when prices will generally peak out, and then you'll see a softening in the back part of the year. Doesn't mean that all of a sudden, next month you're going to be able to buy houses under asking price. That's not what's going to happen. You're still going to see lots of bidding over asking price, but you'll see kind of a little bit of softening. There's fewer buyers out there competing, so instead of getting 15 offers, it might only be 5, which is going to mean that overbid is going to be down a little bit, and that's what's going to partially contribute to seeing this benchmark price slide a little bit. So don't be deceived when you see it sliding, thinking all of a sudden the Saskatoon market is flipped and it's a buyer's market. Oh, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers lose the Labor Day Classic, lose the Banjo Bowl. You just can't beat the Riders. That's why I'm wearing my Rider jersey here. I actually do have a Andrea Harris Winnipeg Blue Bombers jersey. We used to play together when I was out in BC, so it's kind of cool to have that jersey. And maybe if the Winnipeg Blue Bombers ever beat the Riders, I'll wear that jersey in future video. But you're not this season, so too bad. You're gonna have to do with me wearing my Rider jersey. When I'm talking with agents about the Winnipeg real estate market, a couple of things they pointed out to me. First one is that if you're submitting an offer and you don't have a written pre-approval letter with that offer, a lot of sellers aren't taking your offer as seriously. So make sure you have that as part of your offer. as well. This was kind of news to me, something that we don't do here in Regina, but it's becoming much more popular in Winnipeg, is buyers doing inspections prior to writing an offer. So they're going out and they're spending, $600 to $1,000 on a home inspection, not knowing if they're going to get their offer accepted, so they can write an offer without an inspection condition. Take a look at the sales stats. Only 1,400 homes sold, down below the last year, down below the 5-year average. Looking at previous years, you can see 2023 only about 1,400 homes sell, 2022 only about 1,400. Then you go 2021 and earlier, 16, 17, 1,800 houses were selling. Yes, that was a very busy time in the market, but also there was a lot more inventory around that time of year. So that's part of what's constraining sales in Winnipeg. Just simply there's nothing for buyers to buy right now. Kind of an interesting stat about Winnipeg here as well. Look at the year-to-date sales, about 11,000 so far in Winnipeg. Go to 2017, 2016, obviously much slower market then. They only had 12,000 sales in the entire year. So year-to-date, they've almost had as many sales in Winnipeg this year than those years for the entire year. Now, if you're a buyer in Winnipeg, you're obviously checking Realtor Ad Sale Lots and looking for new listings, and you can see in the stats here, there's just not much coming up for sale. They've been below the 5-year average, been below last year, basically every single month all year long. You go look at, 2019, 2020 range, 2,400 homes put up for sale in a month, and this month they have 2,000. So that's really hurting sales. There's just nothing for buyers to even look at right now. And of course, if you don't have new listings and you've got fairly strong sales, well, that means active inventory is going to be lower as well. About 3,600 houses for sale right now. Winnipeg, again, well below last year, well below the 5-year average. But just look at 2019 here. Again, slower time in the market, 6,000 active listings that time of year, and there's 3,600 right now. 2020, obviously big drop off there, but still 4,000 listings. You have to go to 2021 when things really got slow there. So yeah, you can see there's just nothing for buyers to pick from right now. Taking a quick look here at the market balance trend. Months of inventory, that started to tick up a little bit since June, still in seller's market territory. Looking at the sales to new listing ratio, almost 70%, strong seller's market there. And then if you go look at sales to active listing ratio, 40% almost there. Again, remember, over 20% is considered a seller's market. So very, very strong market there. The sales to new listing ratio is the one that's interesting because about 40 to 60% is considered balanced. So over 60% would be considered a seller's market there. So we're kind of trending down towards more of that balanced territory, but still not there yet. Now let's talk about prices. And there really hasn't been a ton of movement since basically March here. 385 then, we're 383 now. So it's been kind of hovering in that range now for the better part of the year. Still up, 6% year over year, was up over 8% last year. Just because we were seeing prices appreciating a little bit more last year, whereas they kind of a flat line this year. This is the time of year that you're going to see Winnipeg prices probably peak out and trend down. They probably already have. Usually that's June, July, August-ish time frame. Prices peak in Winnipeg and then cool off in the back half of the year. The question's going to be is, do they slow down faster than they did last year? And we did see it. You look at it, prices peaked out in June here, 363,000, end of the year at $360,000. So not a ton of downward movement through the back part of the year. I think we're going to probably see similar downward movement this year for this benchmark price. Just be whether it's faster, it slows down than last year. That'll change what that year over year price change ends up being. Now, this doesn't mean just because the benchmark price is cooling off a little bit that all of a sudden you're buying houses under asking price. That's not what's happening here. Much like you've seen in other prairie cities, if you're watching this video, prices trend up in the spring. They fall off a little bit in the back half of the year. That's just what happens when the prices go up or down throughout the course of the year. That's the seasonality of the Winnipeg real estate market. So don't think all of a sudden you're getting great deals in places because it's November and the benchmark price dropped $2,000. Take a look at the Edmonton market here. And the question I get asked probably the most right now is Edmonton going to end up just like Calgary? And we saw a big run up in prices there. And now we're seeing the Calgary market cooling off and prices correcting down. And the quick answer to that is, yeah, kind of, probably. Edmonton's a little bit of a different beast. It's a government town, so you tend to see the ups are a little bit slower and the downs are also a little bit slower and softer, and that's going to play into it. We also didn't see investors pile into the Edmonton real estate market as much as what happened in Calgary, and a little bit less with immigration as well. So I think Edmonton's going to see some of the similar up and down that Calgary saw, but probably not to the same extent. Let's do through the stats here and kind of look at some interesting numbers. The big standout when it comes to sales is down 8% year over year. And I saw that headline put all over the news. And of course, the immediate reaction was, oh my God, the Edmonton real estate market is crashing. It's slowing down so rapidly. we got to put some context in this here. In 2024, the Edmonton real estate market absolutely crushed it when it came to sales numbers. Look at the overall year. They had almost 29,000 homes sold in the year. The next best year, go back to 2022, 2021, and they got 24 and a half, 25,000 homes. So, I mean, last year, nothing came even close to how busy Edmonton was. So everything is probably going to be down from that. You're just not going to see that kind of sales numbers year after year. But taking in some context, the 23, almost 2,400 homes that sold in August this past month, that is up from every other single August on record. That's just how busy it still is in Edmonton. It's just not as insanely busy as it was last year when it comes to home sales. The good news for home buyers in Edmonton is that new listings is up quite significantly. And this is partially what's kept prices in check, because even last year when sales were going bonkers, there was still a fair amount of new listings coming to the market. Right now, about 3,800 homes that were listed for sale this month, up versus last year, up versus the 5-year. And if you go back, through the months or through the years here, you can see that, you've got 3,300, 3,100, 3,100, 2,800, 2,900, 3,200, 3,200-ish. So that's, that 3,000-ish is kind of what you would expect. So 37, 3,800 is well above that. So it's good news for home buyers. You're getting more choice coming to the market. Looking at active inventory, a little more good news for home buyers. And for the first time, I don't even know how long it's been, we've got active inventory above the 5-year average at 1%. You can see, 7,200 roughly homes that are up for sale right now, up significantly from last year as well. Now, if you go back though, you can see that this 5-year average is really skewed by the active inventory last year, because 2023, 6,700 homes, 2022, almost 8,000, 2021, 7,700, 2020, 7,300, 2019, 8,500, 2018, 9,300. So yes, it's up over the 5-year average, only really because 2024 skews it down so badly. Go back, kind of the before times, before COVID, and you can see that, 8, 9, 10,000 active listings in Edmonton this time of year was kind of more typical. So the 7,100 right now was actually on the low side for a more historical perspective. Looking at the market balance trends here, you can see months of inventory. That's been trending up since May. We're now at 3 months of inventory. So that means we're kind of on the edge between a seller's and a balance market. Looking at the sales to new listing ratio at 63, that's still really strong. Over 60% is considered a seller's market, but you can see that's been trending down now for a couple of months. Some of that's to be expected. Part of it's seasonality, but also we just are seeing an overall slowing down of the market. And you can see it also in the active inventory or sales to active inventory ratio here. Early in the year, 60%, we're now down to 34%. That still is seller's market territory. You have to be over 20% for seller's market, so and below 12% for a buyer's market. Going back through the years, you can see at 34%, last year was higher, but previously to that, this is still the strongest seller's market when it comes to sales to active listing ratio that we've had in recent history in Edmonton. Now let's quickly talk about price here. $400 and approximately $30,000, and really it's been kind of hovering, around that 400. It was almost about 440 in March. So we've trended down here a little bit. We saw the $100 increase on the benchmark price from last month, and there was that $12,000 drop the month before that. We're still up 5% year over year in Edmonton. Obviously, early year we're up 12%, and I do expect that we'll see the composite benchmark price here cool off in Edmonton. This is part of its seasonality. You always see this time of year where the prices go up or down. You see some softening in the back half of the market as there's less buyer competition. And I also do think that just we're going to see an overall slowdown in the Edmonton market. You just can't have a year like we had last year over and over again, where they just blow the doors off of the next best year. So we're still probably going to have the second busiest year in Edmonton's history for home sales. It's going to be second to last year. But I do think we're going to see a little bit of a softening here in prices. What happens next year, I mean, that's too far to predict, but for the back half of the year, I think we'll see prices soften a little bit. So is the Calgary real estate market crashing? I think we've got to define what is a crash. And you guys let me know in the comments below, like kind of what would constitute, how much of a price drop, how much will slow down in sales. I'm just curious what you guys think. I'm going to kind of go through some numbers here. No doubt about it though, Calgary real estate market is slowing down and will probably continue to slow down. They just shot up so fast. It was inevitable that this was going to happen. It was just a matter of when, not if things would slow down. Now we have to figure out like what is going to be the new normal for the Calgary real estate market. It's going to find some sort of equilibrium, and we're just going to have to figure out what that's going to be. So let's dive into the stats here and take a look. Starting off with sales, almost 2,000 homes sold in a month, and yeah, down significantly from last year, down significantly versus the 5-year average. But this 5-year average contains the busiest period for home sales Calgary has ever seen, with nothing even close. And so that just, like I said, it's inevitable this was going to slow down. They can't sustain that forever. It's just not going to happen. Go look though here. I'm just pulling through the charts. You look at 2018, 2019. Obviously, those were slower years in the Calgary real estate market. And if you had 2,000 homes that sold in any of those years, that would be a record, not just for the month, but look at, there wasn't a single, I'm just going through this whatever. Yeah, there isn't a single month in 2018 or 2019, actually 2020 as well, where they had almost 2,000 homes sell in the month. So again, just put in some context here. 2,000 homes sold in August is still an exceptionally busy month, just not as insane busy as it was in previous years. Now, the good news for home buyers is that new listings in Calgary has been ticking up. Now, it's down year over year because we had a lot of new listings came up last year, up 18% versus the 5-year average. And again, some of that's skewed because we had some pretty low levels of new listings in this 5-year window. Go look back, 2018, you had about 30,000 homes that were listed for sale in the month. That high 2,000s, low 3,000s is kind of more typical this summer. So even still with 3,500, it's on the higher end of the more historical kind of average range of what you expect. So for home buyers, this is good news. You've got more stuff coming to the market. Active inventory is kind of the interesting one to take a look at here. It's trending down. Now, part of that's to be expected this time of year. You generally going to see a contraction in active listing. But what I'm looking here is the difference between last year and the difference versus the 5-year average. So versus last year, we're seeing that shrink quite a bit. It was up, we're up over 100% over last year, earlier on this year in April and May. Now we're down to 49% above last year. Looking versus the 5-year average, though, you can see that continues to trend up. Now, remember, if you again look at 2023, 22, 21, just how low the active inventory got. 2023, 3,200, 3,300 homes for sale, just shows how low it is. Let's go back though. Look at, like, again, 2018, 2019, 2020 range. Different times, different market back then, but over 7,000, almost 8,000 homes for sale back then. So again, this 5-year average really skewed by how busy and low inventory it was back then. Look at more like the 10-year average and more like all the before times is kind of what I've determined it. You can see a lot more active inventory in Calgary was typical. Taking a look here at the market balance trends, looking at months of inventory at 3.3. Again, that means it's just on the edge of a balance market, balance versus and seller's market. We're not in the buyer's market territory in terms of this metric. And looking at the sales to new listing ratio at 57 puts it on the upper end of a balanced market. So again, 40 to 60 is balanced for sales to new listing ratio. Looking at sales to active listing ratio at 29, that's also actually still in the seller's market category. Above 20% is considered seller's market. So by all of these metrics here, Calgary is actually still technically more in a seller's market than they are balanced versus even a buyer's market, but we are seeing prices slide here. That's why I say don't just look at the metrics, because the metrics will tell you one thing and it may not be what's reflected in prices. And speaking of prices, that comes a benchmark price, $477,000. That's a continued slide all through the year. Now, we saw prices peak out April, $590,000. Looking at January here, $580,000. So we're well below where even we started this year. So barring some miraculous turn on the market, which I don't see happening, we're going to see from January to December a decline in prices. So it's going to be an overall trend down for the year. And we're going to see those year-over-year declines as well. Last year was up over $600,000. And we're in this phase right now in the Calgary real estate market where prices shot up so fast. It was inevitable. They had to come down. The question is going to be, where do they settle out at? Is it going to be the 2020 prices at $400,000? No, I really don't think that's where we're headed. Is it 2023 numbers, mid 500s? Yeah, that's possible. We're going to kind of have to wait and see. The Calgary real estate market's got to find its footing of what is a more normal price point. But again, if you're thinking we're going to get 2020 prices, I don't think that's a very likely scenario.